Welcome, and thank you for joining me. Now we are at the third and final moon of the direction of air, the new flower moon, and things are starting to get interesting. We have a lot to cover in this video. There is a lot of more information to share at this stage regarding the alchemy. There is a big revelation into the alchemy hidden within these concepts. This is the crossing of the threshold in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and after this there is no going back. This is a new flowers moon when everything is green, growing and bursting with life and color. Our Hebrew letter for this moon is Zain, the esoteric sword. In Thursday Night Tarot, when discussing the Gemini tarot key, Jason Lauderhan explains that the sword is discernment. The sword in tarot is associated with Saturn, the planet of lead. Lauderhan summarizes the meaning of the Lover's tarot key this way. The Lover's key is a recitation of all of our capabilities. On the surface, it's Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, but really it's a picture of what we are inside. It shows the intellectual, masculine aspect of ourselves, applying to the intuitive aspect, feminine, in order to get the message that comes from the higher self. This is the major meaning of Key 6. The details are singular and worth looking into, but it emphasizes the doctrinal truth that this particular arrangement of the parts of our psyche brings about a major success in the work. Keep in mind that Jason Lauderhan was also an alchemist, and when he refers to the work, he means the work of alchemy. When looking at the card, the woman is standing on the left by a tree, and a man is on the right by another tree. Above is the angel representing the higher self, to which the woman, our intuitive subconscious, looks, while the man, our analytical conscious, looks to the subconscious. With the angel above and the ground below, the man and woman in the card resemble the sign of Gemini. The sign of Gemini then represents heaven, or the higher self. With the line at the top, the two pillars are the man and woman, the intuitive subconscious and analytical consciousness, and at the bottom is earth. Therefore, we have hidden within the symbol of Gemini the idea of the union of the above with the below. Paul Foster Case has a lot to say about fixation. Yet, let's look at what D.W. Huck has to say first. Fixation is to make a volatile subject fixed, stable, or solid, so that it remains permanently unaffected by fire. Until fixation in Gemini, our subtle nature is volatile. People are not considered fixed, stable creatures. We tend to be changeable, and even when things change, we don't like predictability in our environment. The unaffected by fire part, in particular, however, is important. Remember, fire is associated with the Mars energy of desire. This goes back to the Emerald Tablet that tells us, "Thou shalt separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross." Through fixation, then, we have managed a form of separation. By being immune to the fire, we are no longer affected by the gross, by our passions. Now, Paul Foster Case has a lot to say about the stage of fixation. Here is his definition. Fixation is the establishment of the due bonds of the three principles: the mercury of the superconscious, the sulfur of the self-conscious, and salt of the subconscious. Here we have a change in terms from those used by Lauderhan in the tarot keys, yet it's very easy to assign the meanings to the different symbols. Paul Foster Case is assigning Mercury to the higher self and the angel in the Lover's key. Salt belongs to the woman, the subconscious. Sulfur, then, is depicted in the tarot key by the man. Keep in mind that Lauderhan was a student of Paul Foster Case. The symbolism in the tarot key supports this. The masculine analytical mind is with the burning pillar of flame associated with sulfur that burns. The subconscious female is with a pillar that looks like a tree, which is a great example of salt associated with earth. We now know Mercury, in Case's system, is the higher self. Salt, the intuitive subconscious, and sulfur, the conscious animal analytical mind. D.W. Huck explains regarding salt in the Sorcerer's Stone. Salt exhibits a fixed nature that resists fire and is found in ashes. This gives us an idea of what remains after a tarot card moment that sends us down the path of the seeker, and why it leads to an awakening. It is our conscious mind's perception of the world that is burned away in such moments, leaving only our subconscious to look to. Salt, D.W. Huck explains, is the key to alchemy, the beginning and end of the great work. It is the imperfect matter at the beginning of the experiments that has to be destroyed and dissolved to release its essences, which are reconstituted into the more perfect form at the end of the experiment. Salt is the mediator between sulfur and mercury, and their balancer, and gives reason and purpose to the dance of opposites. Those opposites in our pursuit of the great work would be the higher eternal soul self and the lower earthly conscious that often thinks physical material reality is all that exists. To understand how fixation works, when it comes to the symbolism in the Lover's Key of Tarot, Case explains that it is the conscious self, sulfur, that places the subconscious into the right relation with the higher self. In fact, this could be said to be the purpose of the great work. This is backed up in out-of-body experiences of all types. The soul, the woman depicted in the Tarot Key, is not fixed on the angel and returning to heaven. Instead, we are fixed on the earth and figuring out this earth experience. That is why we are trapped within samsara and seemingly endless crunch of the human experience through incarnations. Case goes on to share a quote of ancient alchemists regarding this point of the process. It disposes the righteous to faithfulness and clothes them with the holy life breath. This is an obvious connection, as Case points out, to the element of air assigned to the sign of Gemini. But he goes on to explain that this quote means that we merge with oneness, the one identity, as he calls it, and explains. United with that, we share its consciousness of an internal now, and this is the state of alchemical fixation. This stage of the work is also connected to the sense of smell. This is interesting because the sense of smell stimulates the thalamus, the part of our brain that literally filters sensory input. Smell is the only one of the 5 senses that affects the filter. This explains why smell can literally affect our bodies and how it is at the top of the 5 senses. Paul Foster Case explains, the brain centers which record and interpret the metaphysical sense impressions are the same as those with which we exercise the physical senses. In this step, we have pulled the iron sword of discernment, a symbol of Saturn, from the leaden stone of our subconscious. We are not transforming the consciousness of our body, but the consciousness of our eternal soul in this alchemical transformation. The result of this work will be ultimate liberation, not on the earthly plane, but throughout all levels of existence. The elixir of eternal life may be something for our souls that the alchemists were working on, and not for our physical bodies. Here, we have fixed the proper levels of working with our higher self. Our conscious self begins to work with the subconscious.